The sleek black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the modest two-story house on Elm Street, its engine humming softly before falling silent. Oscar Thompson gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white as memories flooded back like a tidal wave threatening to drown him. 10 years. It had been 10 long years since he last stood here, an 18-year-old boy with a shattered heart and a backpack full of clothes thrown out into the pouring rain by his own father. Now at 28, he was a different man, CEO of Harmony Tech, a multimillion-dollar company revolutionizing mental health support for the LGBTQ community. Beside him sat Abel Rivera, his husband of 3 years, whose calm presence was the anchor Oscar desperately needed. "You sure about this, babe?" Abel asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. His hand found Oscar's, warm and reassuring. Oscar turned to him, those dark eyes that had seen too much pain now filled with a mix of resolve and fear. "I have to face them, Abel." Mom called. "Dad's sick, the family business is sinking. But it's not just that. I need them to see what I became without them. What we built together." The front door opened, and there she was, his mother, Elena, her face pale as she recognized the man stepping out of the car. "Oscar, is that really you?" Her voice cracked, hands trembling as she clutched the doorframe. Behind her, his father, Robert Thompson, appeared, his once imposing frame now hunched from illness, but his eyes still burned with the same old fire. "What the hell is he doing here?" Robert growled, ignoring the luxury vehicle and the well-dressed stranger at his son's side. Oscar took a deep breath, feeling Abel's supportive hand on his lower back. The air was thick with tension, the suburban neighborhood quiet except for the distant bark of a dog. This was the moment he had imagined 1,000 times in his darkest nights, returning not as the broken boy they discarded, but as someone who had forged his own path through fire. The flashback hit him hard as he walked up the cracked path, the same path he had stumbled down that night 10 years ago. It was a warm summer evening, the kind where the crickets sang loud enough to drown out doubts. The family had gathered for dinner. His mother had made her famous meatloaf, his brother Marcus joked about football, and his sister Clara helped set the table. Oscar had rehearsed the words in his head for months, the truth burning inside him like a secret too heavy to carry alone. In gay, he had said the sentence, landing on the table like a grenade. Silence first, then his father's chair scraping back. "You what?" Robert had roared, his face turning red, veins bulging. "This is a sin against God and this family. Get out." Elena had reached for him, tears in her eyes, but Robert had shoved her aside. "You're no son of mine. Pack your things and leave tonight." The memory still cut deep, the rain soaking his clothes as he walked away with nothing but $20 in his pocket and a heart full of betrayal. Marcus had watched from the window, saying nothing. Clara had cried but stayed silent. That night, Oscar had hitchhiked to the bus station, sleeping in shelters until he reached New York, where the city swallowed him whole. Days turned to months of odd jobs, hunger, and loneliness, until one rainy afternoon at the LGBTQ Youth Center, he met Abel. Abel had been volunteering, handing out hot meals, his gentle smile cutting through Oscar's walls. They talked for hours about dreams and pain, and the courage it took to be true to yourself. Abel became his reason to fight, building a life together from shared apartments to late-night strategy sessions that birthed Harmony Tech. Success came with scars, investor betrayals, public scrutiny, and the constant weight of proving he was worthy. Yet through it all, Abel stood by him, their bond forged in quiet nights of holding each other through nightmares. Now standing on this porch, Oscar felt the old shame rise, but also a fierce pride. He had paid the price for love and truth, and today the family that broke him would see the man they could not destroy. Elena stepped forward, her arms opening, but stopping short as if afraid to touch the stranger her son had become. Robert crossed his arms, his jaw set. "You think showing up in a fancy car changes anything, boy? You chose that lifestyle." Oscar met his gaze, voice calm but edged with steel. "I chose to survive, Dad. And I did more than that. This is Abel, my husband." The word hung in the air, heavy with the years of silence it had endured. Elena gasped softly, her hand flying to her chest. Marcus appeared behind them, his face a mask of surprise mixed with something darker, jealousy perhaps, or guilt. Clara peeked from the hallway, her eyes wide. The tension crackled like electricity before a storm. Oscar knew this return would tear open every wound, but he was ready to face the cost. Abel squeezed his hand, a silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. The door closed behind them as they stepped inside the house that once cast him out, now forced to witness his triumph. Yet as the familiar scent of home hit him, Oscar wondered if Triumph could ever erase the boy who had cried himself to sleep on park benches, wondering why his own blood had turned against him. The afternoon light streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the living room where framed photos still hung, showing a family whole and smiling a lie that had defined his childhood. Robert sat heavily in his recliner, coughing, once the illness evident in his pallor. Elena busied herself in the kitchen, her movements jerky with emotion. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, studying Oscar like an intruder. "So, big shot, what brings you back, really?" Marcus asked, his tone laced with sarcasm. Oscar felt the old rivalry stir, the brother who had once been his protector, now a stranger. "Mom called," he replied simply. "And I came because, despite everything, this is still my family." Abel stood tall beside him, his presence the quiet force radiating support. The conversation flowed in fits and starts, Elena asking tentative questions about life in New York, Abel answering with warmth that eased the room slightly. But beneath it all, the undercurrent of judgment simmered, Robert's occasional grunts of disapproval. By the time evening fell, Oscar realized the real battle had only begun. The choices he would make here would test every moral fiber, the sacrifices he had endured and the awakenings waiting to unfold. The first night back stretched long and uneasy, the guest room feeling both familiar and foreign with its faded wallpaper and creaky bed. Oscar lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Abel beside him breathing steadily, the only steady thing in a world spinning with ghosts. "We should have stayed in the hotel," Abel whispered, turning to face him, his fingers tracing light circles on Oscar's arm. "You don't have to sleep under this roof if it hurts too much." Oscar shook his head, the decision weighing on him like lead. "I need to feel it all again to remember why I left and why I'm here now." The pressure from family had always been suffocating, the small-town expectations, the church sermons on sin, the neighbors' whispers that followed him even before he came out. Society had taught him early that being different meant paying a price, and his family had collected it in full. Yet lying there, Oscar felt the deep conflict tear at him, love for the mother who had baked cookies for his school plays versus the anger at the father who had chosen doctrine over blood. Abel pulled him closer, their bodies fitting perfectly in the quiet safety they had built over years of shared struggles. "Remember when we first met?" Abel said softly, his voice a bomb. "You were so scared of letting anyone close. I saw the fire in you, the drive to make the world better for kids like us. That's why I fell in love with you, not the success, but the heart that refused to break." Their bond had been tested in the city's harsh lights, investor meetings where whispers of their relationship nearly cost them funding, public speeches where Oscar stood on stages advocating for acceptance while hiding the personal cost from his past. One betrayal stood out, a trusted advisor who leaked their private life to conservative media, hoping to tank the company. The scandal had raged for weeks, forcing them to face the societal prejudice head-on, Abel taking the brunt of hate mail, so Oscar could keep the vision alive. Through it all, they had chosen each other, trading comfort for truth, and the rewards had come in waves, contracts that saved lives, awards that validated their fight. But here in Ohio, the old prejudices felt alive again, the air thick with unspoken rules. The next morning breakfast was a battlefield of politeness, Elena serving eggs with trembling hands, asking about their life in careful words. Robert barely spoke, his coughs punctuating the silence like accusations. Marcus arrived late, his eyes darting between Oscar and Abel, a flicker of envy in his gaze. The family business, a struggling auto repair shop, was on the brink. Robert's illness had drained the savings, and Marcus had mismanaged the books out of desperation. Oscar listened to the details, his mind racing with a moral dilemma. Should he offer help, the very money earned from the life they rejected, or let them face the consequences of their choices? Abel watched him closely, knowing the internal storm, the pull between revenge and compassion. "You don't owe them anything," Abel said later as they walked the backyard, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. "But if you help, it has to be on your terms, not theirs." Oscar nodded, the weight of decision pressing down. The afternoon brought the first real confrontation, Robert cornering him in the garage. "You think your fancy life makes you better," he snarled. "That lifestyle destroyed this family." Oscar stood tall, the boy inside flinching, but the man refusing to yield. "It didn't destroy me, Dad. It made me stronger." The words hung heavy with the pain of years, the nights Oscar had questioned his worth, the days he had fought depression in silence, until Abel showed him that love was not a sin but a strength. Elena overheard her tears flowing as she confessed her nightly prayers for his safety, the letters she never sent for fear of Robert's wrath. The revelation cracked something in Oscar, the first hint of awakening in the family, the realization that silence had cost them all. Marcus avoided the talk, but his jealousy surfaced in snide comments about how Oscar had it easy in the big city. The tension built like a storm cloud the societal judgments of the town, seeping in through old neighbors stopping by with fake smiles hiding their disapproval. By evening, Oscar felt exhausted yet alive, the choices before him clear yet terrifying. Helping could heal or reopen wounds, the price of forgiveness a gamble on hearts hardened by time. Abel held him that night, their love a quiet rebellion against the world that had tried to break them. The days ahead would demand every ounce of courage, the betrayals of the past colliding with the possibilities of the present. Family dinner that second evening turned into a pressure cooker, the table set with Ileana's best china, but the air charged with unsaid accusations. Robert presided at the head, his illness making him frilier, yet his words sharp as ever. "So you two are married now?" He spat the word like poison. "In the eyes of God, that's no marriage." Oscar felt the familiar stab, the moral conflict raging inside him, the faith he had once shared now twisted into a weapon against his truth. Abel reached under the table, squeezing his knee, a silent reminder of their shared battles, the protests they had marched, the lives they had changed through Harmony Tech. "We built something real," Oscar replied, his voice even. "A company that helps people like me who were kicked out and left to fend for themselves. It saves lives, Dad. Real lives." Elena fidgeted with her napkin, her eyes pleading for peace. The conversation shifted to the family business, the mounting debts, the layoffs looming. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his role in the mismanagement clear in the way he avoided details. Oscar saw the opening, the dilemma tearing at him, to bail them out with a check that could save the shop or walk away, letting their choices bear fruit. The societal weight pressed into the town's conservative values that had labeled him deviant, now facing a man who had risen above it. Flashbacks haunted him during the meal, the high school bullying, the church youth group where leaders prayed the gay away, the isolation that drove him to the edge. Abel had saved him not with grand gestures, but with patient love, late nights talking through the shame, the decision to channel pain into purpose. Their partnership had faced its own trials, a rival company trying to steal their tech by outing them in court documents, the public scrutiny that tested their commitment. Yet they had chosen unity over fear, the sacrifice of privacy for the greater good. Clara arrived late, her hug for Oscar, tentative, her questions about Abel polite but laced with curiosity. She had married young, stayed in town, raised kids under the same roof of expectations. Her life a mirror of what Oscar had escaped, the quiet conformity, the unspoken regrets. After dinner in the living room, the confrontation escalated, Robert standing shakily. "You come back flaunting your sin, expecting us to welcome you." Oscar rose, the anger and love colliding in his chest. "I came because family means something even when it hurts. But I want to apologize for who I am." The room fell silent, Ileana's sobs breaking the quiet. Marcus muttered something about easy money, the betrayal of his inaction 10 years ago, now evident in his resentment. Abel spoke, then his words measured. "Oscar has given everything to build a better world. The choice to help here is his, but it comes with truth." The night ended with Oscar pacing the backyard, the moral weight crushing. To forgive or demand accountability, the price of each decision clear in the faces of those who had hurt him most. Abel joined him, their embrace under the stars, a moment of pure connection, the love that had carried them through every storm. The awakening was beginning, small cracks in the family's armor, but the road ahead promised more pain and perhaps redemption. The third day brought revelations that shattered the fragile peace. Marcus cornering Oscar in the kitchen, his face twisted with years of buried guilt. "I knew you were struggling back then," he admitted, voice low. "I saw the signs, but I stayed silent. Dad would have turned on me, too." The betrayal hit like a fist, the brother Oscar had idolized, choosing self-preservation over loyalty. Anger surged, the inner conflict boiling. Why protect the family that had failed him? Abel listened from the doorway, his presence steady as Oscar processed the confession. "You chose fear over blood," Oscar said, the words cutting. "I lost everything because of it." Marcus looked away, the cost of his decision etched in his tired eyes, the struggling marriage, the dead-end job. The family business crisis deepened, that afternoon, creditors calling, Robert retreating to his room in defeat. Oscar sat with the numbers, the dilemma stark: help with strings attached, or let the empire he built remain untouched. Societal prejudice echoed in the town's gossip, the local paper running a piece on his return, framing it as a prodigal son's story laced with judgment. Elena pulled him aside in the afternoon, her confessions pouring out, the nights She had driven around searching for him, the letters hidden from Robert. "I was weak," she whispered, "but I never stopped loving you." The words cracked Oscar's resolve, the psychological toll of her divided loyalty weighing heavy. Abel and Oscar took a walk through the old neighborhood, the park where they had played as kids, now a reminder of lost innocence. Their conversation turned deep, the sacrifices Abel had made leaving his own family in California to build a life with Oscar, the moral choice to prioritize love over tradition. "We've paid enough," Abel said. "Helping them doesn't mean forgetting the pain." The evening brought another clash, Robert accusing Oscar of using his success to shame them. The confrontation revealed deeper fractures, Clara's quiet admission of her own doubts about the family's beliefs, the societal pressure that kept her trapped. Oscar felt the awakening stir in them, the possibility of change, but the price was high, the emotional labor of guiding them through prejudice. Late that night, Oscar and Abel talked in the guest room, the decision looming. To extend a hand or walk away, the correct choice mired in gray, the consequences rippling through generations. Their love shone bright in the darkness, a beacon of what truth could build. The drama intensified with every revelation, the betrayals and choices defining the man Oscar had become. Success stories filled the living room that fourth evening, Oscar sharing carefully edited tales of boardrooms and battles, Abel adding details that highlighted their partnership. The family listened, rapt, some with awe, others with resentment. Robert coughed through the stories, his illness a stark reminder of mortality, the moral dilemma for Oscar sharpening. Should he use his resources to heal the man who had wounded him deepest? Marcus pressed for details on the company, his jealousy surfacing in questions about investment, the past silence now a barrier to trust. Elena beamed quietly, her pride mixed with regret, the societal lens of the town, making her fear what neighbors would say. A town hall meeting loomed, the local church planning a forum on family values, Oscar invited as the returning son. The pressure mounted, the choice to speak or stay silent, a test of his convictions. Abel supported him fully, their private moments filled with deep talks about the cost of visibility, the betrayals from allies who had folded under pressure. One memory surfaced, a major investor pulling funding after a tabloid exposed the decision to fight back, forging their empire stronger. Clara opened up about her marriage, the quiet unhappiness, the awakening sparked by Oscar's return. The family dynamic shifted in subtle ways, Robert's gruffness softening slightly, Ileana's courage growing. Yet the confrontation peaked when Marcus accused Oscar of abandoning them. "You left us to rot," he said. The irony stung Oscar, retorting with the truth of his expulsion, the price he paid alone. Abel stepped in, calm yet firm, reminding them of the real sacrifices love demanded. The night ended with Oscar reflecting on the porch, the stars above mirroring the vastness of his journey, the correct path unclear, but the heart guiding toward truth. Their love deepened in the crisis, the romantic bond a foundation against the storms. Crisis hit the family business full force, a bank notice arriving that fifth morning, the shop facing closure. Oscar held the letter, the moral choice before him, crystal, the power to save or let fall. Abel advised caution, the help must not erase the past harm. Robert pleaded indirectly, his pride crumbling, the illness worsening under stress. Marcus confessed fully, his mismanagement born of resentment, the betrayal complete. The town gossip swirled, societal prejudice, turning Oscar's return into spectacle. Elena stood by her son for the first time, voicing support, the internal conflict resolving into action. A heated family meeting ensued, accusations flying, the psychological toll visible in every face. Oscar weighed the options, the decision to invest a lifeline with conditions of acceptance. Abel challenged him gently, the risk of repeating cycles of pain. The climax built as Robert suffered a health scare, the ambulance ride a turning point, the family gathered in the hospital, the awakenings accelerating. Oscar paid the bills quietly, the choice made not for revenge but for humanity. Their love anchored the chaos, the quiet moments between crises reaffirming their bond. Word count 996. File 7. Emotions erupted in the hospital waiting room the sixth day, Robert's condition stabilizing but the hearts laid bare. Elena hugged Oscar, fully the years of silence breaking. Marcus broke down, admitting his cowardice, the betrayal costing him his brother's trust. Clara questioned her beliefs, the societal chains loosening. Oscar faced his father, the confrontation raw, the moral dilemmas laid bare, forgiveness not forgetting. Abel stood as witness, the sacrifices of their journey shining. The family began to shift, small steps toward understanding the price of prejudice clear. Oscar felt the inner peace emerge, the awakening mutual. Yet tensions lingered, the correct choice debated in hushed tones. Their romantic connection deepened. A hallway, whispers love the force that healed. The final evening back home brought closure of sorts. The seventh day, since arrival, the family gathered with new respect. Oscar signed the papers saving the business, his conditions clear: respect and openness. Robert nodded weakly, the first crack in his armor. Elena smiled, truly the regret transforming into hope. Marcus extended a hand, the betrayal acknowledged, the path to repair begun. Clara hugged Abel, welcoming him fully. The town watched the changes ripple, societal prejudice challenged by one man's return. Oscar and Abel stood in the driveway, the sun bright, their foreheads touching, the romantic moment pure, the strength earned. As they drove away, Oscar looked back, the house smaller, now the pain still present, but the triumph real. Was Oscar right to return and extend forgiveness despite the deep betrayals, or should some family wounds remain unforgiven forever, true or false?